Hi there, this is a kind of a take two. I have already started this live and somehow it's stopped, so I will go back to the beginning. There's a question that I got this week that is something that has come up time and time again from many clients who've contacted me who are in the process of purchasing a property. They haven't bought it yet, they're thinking about buying it, and they have found the right property for them in terms of it's the right location, it fits their budget, it's the right size, or it could be the right size, but it doesn't really work for them as it is, and they know that they need to do something to it. And the question that I get asked really a huge amount is, should we move in first and live with it and see how it feels and then decide what we want to change? Or should we get all the work done to the property before we move in? So this is a really great question. I'm going to dive into that with this live Q&A. I'll first of all introduce you to myself if you've not met me before. I'm Jane Leach, and I'm a chartered architect and the founding director of iArchitect. I specialise in helping homeowners of houses built before 1940 to turn them into much more comfortable homes that suit a modern lifestyle but retain all those beautiful original features and the sense of history, and at the same time look at protecting the planet and in the way that we do the work. So that's really my speciality, is historic building work and eco refurbishment combined. So I get a lot of clients who are in the process of purchasing, and it's a really exciting time. You found somewhere you really love for whatever reason. Maybe it's the light, maybe it's the views, maybe it's just the location and it fits within your budget and you love that place. But the building itself, it's not really going to meet your needs, and you know that you're going to need to do something to change it, but you've not lived in it. You can't quite visualize what it's going to be like to live in it yourself yet, and you're not sure if you really should experience living there first before you then start to decide what changes to make, or if you should get all the work done so that you can just move in and it's fresh and it's ready and it's what you want and need. So this is really difficult to answer, and actually there's no straight yes or no answer to this. It really depends on you, what you need and what you want. It's so unique to everybody, has got their own unique circumstances, and that is where, you know, it's not something that somebody outside like myself can come in and say, well, actually what's going to be best for you is this, because that can just be my opinion and it's not really necessarily right for you. But what I can do is I can help you figure out what is going to be the best for you, and the best starting point for doing that is to ask why. Ask, why are you looking to move? Why is this house right for you? And why are you needing to make this change in your life? I know these are sort of seem a bit esoteric kind of questions, but these get down to the fundamental reasons for you to make this change. And moving home, buying a new house and moving is a really big life change, and it's really important to understand what it is that's driving that change, so that you can then make sure that change is going to be right for you. So when it comes to buying a new house, I know that it can be really difficult to visualize what it's going to be like to live in it. And perhaps, I have had friends tell me, no, buying a house, I tried the house out less than I would if I was going to buy a coat. If I was going to buy a coat, I would go to the shop, several shops, I would try on lots of coats. I'd spend time in the dressing room, looking in the mirror, trying it on, checking that it fit, maybe popping out of the dressing room, getting a friend's opinion, and I would spend a lot more time trying out a coat and testing it out before I bought a coat than I do buying my house, because you rush in, you've got 15-20 minutes to look around it with the estate agent, and then you're out, and that's it. And it's this huge financial investment, much more than you're spending on your coat. And yet you have much less time to think it through, because there's a lot of pressures, other people are interested perhaps. It's not going to be available it's one of a kind, it's not going to be available forever. So you just don't have the time. It's not that possible to make the booking and arrange to view with the agent. You might get to view it a second time, but you might not. So I can understand why it's a concern that you don't really feel like you know this building very well. And that is really where my skills as an architect come in, because I can look at a property, even just from plans and photographs, to get a really good impression of that building. And if I get to walk around it in real life, I'll get an even better sense of it. And that's where, if you're working with an architect, you can really pull on that expertise and knowledge and understanding of the architect to help you with where you're finding it difficult to visualize. That is what an architect's trained to do, experienced at doing, is visualizing what it's going to be like to use that space, and how that space is going to look and feel. Most importantly, actually, is feel. So the other thing to think about is you are living somewhere. So you can assess what you need and what you would love to have based on what you have right now. And it might not be the same place that you're looking at changing, but you can understand, you can see, this works for me or it doesn't work for me. Perhaps you're looking at kitchen extensions and changing kitchens to become more open plan. That's a very frequently sought for change from my clients. And so when you're looking at making changes to a kitchen, for example, it's really important to understand, how do you want to live in that kitchen? Are you looking to make it a big open plan space because you want to be able to see children playing and help them with their homework in another part of the space whilst you're getting on with cooking, baking, decorating cakes, or whatever thing it is that you're up to in the kitchen, but you can have more of a connected family life all together in the same room whilst you're getting on doing all the the bits that you need to do? Or do you prefer to have a smaller kitchen where you can literally go in, you have a small space, and you don't need to move around very much, you can stand in one place, you can reach everything at once, it's very efficient, you can get your stuff done quickly, close the door, done, and then carry on with whatever else you want to get on with? Those are two very different ways of living, and it's really important to have a really good understanding about what it is how you want to live. What's an important way to live for you? Would you feel really isolated and cut off from the rest of your family if you had to go and spend time in a kitchen on your own and prepare food, and then everybody else is socializing in the dining room and the living room, and you're on your own in the kitchen? Would that work for you, or would it not work for you? For some people, that's ideal. That's exactly what they want. They don't want people in their way while they're getting on with stuff. And they would rather that. Other people, they want to have their friends and family sort of standing around at a breakfast bar or a kitchen island whilst making their dinner and being able to have a chat, have a glass of wine, and talk about what's going on, and be very sociable whilst cooking and doing all the typical kitchen tasks. So those are two extreme examples, but there are many different variations on that. And things to consider is, do you like to cook on your own, or do you like to have other people cooking with you? And in that case, you need a different sort of scale of kitchen. You need to have space to be able to pass each other, and to be able to open a cupboard, and somebody else to be able to walk past carrying something hot perhaps without there being an accident. So these are different things to think about in terms of how you want to live your life, and why then is it important for you to have that lifestyle. What is it about that lifestyle that is important for you, and then do you need to then make changes to the physical space around you to be able to support you in creating that lifestyle that you want to have. So that is where that would be the starting point that I would go from. Look at it, what is it you want to have, assess where you're living right now, whether the place that you're living right now is the place that is going to be your project, or whether you're buying somewhere else. You can still assess the place that you have right now and understand what it is that you need from the place that you're living, and then apply that knowledge and information onto the place that you're moving to. So I hope that makes sense. So that I think that's the most important thing. Then when it comes to deciding between moving in and living there or moving in later, then you start to think about things like time scale, things like budget, things like are you happy to live in a disrupted sort of space? So for example, you bought a house, you move in, you spend some time living there and really deciding what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and then you've got the choice then, okay, you've decided you're going to do something, you get this project started, get the ball rolling, and then it comes time to start work on site. What do you want to do then? Do you want to move out and have the work carry on, or are you happy to do the work, have the work going on, and you're living there, and are you happy to deal with that dust and mess and disruption? For some people that's absolutely fine, for some people there's no way. There are things that you can do to help minimize the disruption and minimize the mess. Things like staging your works. You don't have to do everything all at once. You can do some things in a smaller stage, some things in one year, some other things another year, so that you can close off the dusty areas and live around it and minimize the disruption in that way. There are lots of different options, and I know that makes it more difficult to decide which is the right thing for you, but that's why I would start off with asking yourself what it is you need and why you need that. That's the first thing to get clear in your mind, and then it's much easier to make the rest of the decisions. But so that's one option. You move in, you decide if you like it, you get work done, and you decide whether you move out again to move back in, or if you live with this disruption. The other option would be to get all the design work, get everything sorted whilst or just after you've purchased your new property, and then get the work done and only then move in. So those are your two options with a couple of variations. That you know, it's fairly straightforward. You've got two basic options. The choice is between living with the mess or not living with the mess, whether you are able to make the decisions about what you want and what you need before living there, or whether you can't. Obviously, working with an architect can help you with that, because you can rely on your architect to help you with making those decisions and help you with visualizing what it would be like to live there, and to talk through those different, you know, what your requirements are, and get an understanding of that, and be able then to apply that to the design to make it work for you. So then in that case, you don't necessarily have to have lived there. So your choice really in terms of that. In terms of time scale and budget, time and budget also makes obviously a big difference. What are you, how much money have you got to spend? How quickly is it that you want to be able to live there and have everything as you would ideally like it to have? If you are going to move in and then move out and then move back in again, that can take a lot longer to get to your final destination of your ideal home than it can be to get the work done and then move in once it's ready. But at the same time, it's costly buying a home. Maybe you need that extra time to be able to save up some more money to be able to do the work. Everybody's in a different financial position, and that's something that you can assess for yourself. What does your budget allow, and in terms of timescale, when is it that you need these things to happen? So budget and timescale are always fundamental deciding factors for every project. But I come back to, again, why is the most important thing. You want to make sure that what you're doing is what you really need and what you really want, and then figure out how to make that happen within the constraints of your timescale and budget. Don't start off with the timescale and budget and then make things based on that, because that is not going to ultimately give you what you really want and what you really need. So some questions to ask for when you're going through thinking about what you need. First of all, how do you want to live? Think about each space in your home and think about what it is that you ideally want to be doing in there. So maybe it's your living room. Is your living room somewhere for you to sit and relax with a glass of wine, a log fire, watching Netflix? Or is your living room where you have friends around and you chat and you don't want to watch TV? Maybe you just want a nice quiet place where you can sit and contemplate the garden and read a book. Maybe it's a space where you have your children there and you're sitting on the floor, you're playing jigsaw puzzles, building tower blocks made of mega blocks. These are so different kinds of lifestyles, and maybe, if you're looking at living in this home for a long time, it's possible that what you're wanting to do in those spaces will change with time, and so it's worth sort of thinking about what it is you want to do now, but how you think you might want to be living in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, 15, 20 years' time. And can you see any changes in how you might want to live? And are there ways that you can make that room adaptable so that it is going to serve you for that longer period of time, and it's not just going to be about now? So how do you want to live? And then it's really interesting to ask yourself why is it that you want to live like that? For example, maybe you think, well, I want to be able to have lots of friends around because we want to have a party. Maybe it's your first house. Maybe you're in your mid to late 20s, if you're really lucky, and you've got your first house and you want to be able to invite your friends around and party. And but is that really what you're gonna want? Maybe for a year or two, but then tidying up after all that mess can get tired. So perhaps you actually think, okay, well, actually, I'd rather just live somewhere where it's really easy to go out and have a nice drink with my friends out somewhere. Everybody's different. This is where it's really crucial to sort of understand how is it you want to live, but then ask the next question, why? Why is that the way I want to live? And is this house the best suited for achieving that? And why is living that way important to me? So asking these questions can really dive down deeper into understanding what it is you want, what it is you need, and then we can make that space really work for those deeper desires so that you can really get what you really, really want and need, rather than sort of a more superficial kind of delivery of project and space. That's actually, when you look deeper, it's not necessarily going to be what you really want and what you really need. And personally, I actually I'm quite happy to find solutions that don't need any building work. Building is a really energy and time cost expense. It's not something to be done lightly, and it should be done with a lot of consideration. And when it's done with that consideration, then what you end up doing is so much better than anything else. And I think if you just build without having taken these thoughts into account, then you're not necessarily going to get what you want. It's not going to necessarily be what you need, and ultimately you might be completely dissatisfied, having wasted money and wasted your time and your effort and your energies in trying to make this happen. And actually because you've not been clear with yourself. And then if you're working with an architect, be clear and open and honest with your architect so that they can deliver what you really want and need. More questions. Will making changes to your house make it possible for you to have that lifestyle that you really want? Sometimes it isn't. It isn't a change in the physical space around you that will make that possible. Sometimes it could be the walls, but sometimes it's more about interior design. Maybe it's more about the furniture that you've got. Maybe it's more about just, if you want to be able to entertain more, maybe it's just about actually sending invites. It's not really about making any physical changes at all. It's just about making the contacts and the connections and inviting people around. That's just one example, but there's so many different things where maybe the solution is not going to be a physical building change, and maybe it is, but maybe it's making the right change for you that's important. Another question, what does your ideal life look like? Describe it. Think it through, and what would be your ideal day? What would be your ideal morning? What would be your ideal evening? What would be an ideal weekend for you? An ideal weekday? Where would you spend most of your time? What would you be doing when you're there? Who would you be with? How would you be interacting? These are all, important questions to ask yourself and have really clear in your mind, so that then you can really understand how to make your home really work for you. I hope this has been helpful. I know that it's kind of getting a bit philosophical and deep and esoteric, and I know that it's not really comfortable for a lot of people to think about these sorts of things. But I think if you're really serious about getting your best life and having your best home that suits you, these are the sorts of questions that you should be starting off with. All the other questions are a little bit irrelevant if you've not got these questions clear in your mind, the answers to those. I hope this has really helped you. If you've got any comments, please comment below. #replay if you're watching the replay. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye for now.